taking you inside 6 issues important to the Space Coast today, including healthcare, higher education, growth and development, and animal welfare. We'll do that with key moments from my recent interviews with state and local newsmakers, and we'll show you on-location video from Florida Today on 2 stories you'll want to talk about with friends. Also coming up in the program, Florida Today opinion curator Alice Garwood tells us what's bugging readers. She has this week's look at letters to the editor. But first, why did Brevard politicians reject a plan to expand government health coverage to 1 million more poor Floridians under Obamacare? I put that question to State Representative Steve Christofouli, the Merritt Island Republican who will serve as the next Speaker of the Florida House. Watch. Governor Rick Scott wanted the state to pass a law that took a lot of money from the federal government to insure more Floridians with Medicaid. You were among the House Republicans who said, no, let's not do that. Why?
Well, I think you'll notice that a lot of what we heard was it was free. Well, as we know, Matt, nothing's free. Florida has its challenges, obviously, with a growing population. But what the feds were looking at was not a program that we thought in the House that would work best for Florida. And ultimately, we put out our own plan that would have certainly been something that we thought we could live with, and it was something that was going to be using state revenues, not federal dollars. And the fact of the matter is, over the last 10 years, Medicaid has doubled in cost to the state. We spent over $170 million, or $170 billion, excuse me, in the last 10 years. And on the same projection that we're on right now without an expansion of Medicaid, we would extend that another $230+ million. So it's $1 billion, excuse me. but with that, it's a very expensive thing for the state of Florida. I mean, we talked about how the commitment from the feds would be there for 3 years, and then it would become part of Florida's budget. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't work for Florida. Medicaid is not a program that I believe in. I don't think it's a great program. It does have a lot of fraud in it, and I think there's better alternatives for Florida. And the Florida House came out with an alternative that was basically a market-based approach that we would subsidize people with their monthly expenditures on the program. And it would work under a program that would be funded by state dollars. And we felt that that was a better way to go. We do not want to be dependent on the federal government from the standpoint of dollars and cents. That's how the original Medicaid program started. And at the end of the day, that's over 30% of our budget. So, there's a lot of challenges there. There's a lot of information that generally doesn't get out to the public. But ultimately, the House plan is what we thought was the best approach.
So what happens next year? Are you going to take up this issue again with some kind of compromise or some kind of a state level?
Well, we feel, I mean, obviously, the House had our plan, the Senate had a plan, the governor had a plan. We still feel confident in the plan that we've put forward, just simply from the standpoint that we're funding it. It's something that's on a glide path that Florida can still afford. It takes care of the childless adults and those on SSI, and the parents of those on kid care, and it doesn't necessarily take care of the 25-year-old that's walking around with a new iPhone. It's a program that is what we feel meant to be for those that are in need, and it's the safety net approach. So we feel that our program was the right way to go. Again, the federal program is something that's funded with deficit spending. I mean, right. They talk about, well, why don't I take the free money? Well, it's not free money. Well, what about when that money goes to another state? Well, it doesn't, because it doesn't exist. It's deficit spending. It just goes on top of the $16 trillion bill that Washington currently has.
Next up, one of the most talked about stories in higher education. I asked Brevard Community College President Jim Ritchie, why is the institution changing its name and adding degrees? Take a look. Let's talk about the thing that I think a lot of people are talking about in the community, and that is the name change for the college. It's going to be Eastern Florida State.
Eastern Florida State College.
Okay, where did that come from?
Well, actually, that was a function of a vast survey that we did within the community. We involved many folks from industry, from all different parts of the college, faculty, staff, alums, a wide variety of folks all had an opportunity to weigh in on the direction of the college and the naming of the college. And it was something that we were very proud we did. And we listened to folks, and they decided that they wanted a name that was more regional in its name, and okay. So we thought we would go with that, and it's been perceived very well in the community. Thank you.
Why change it?
Well, the college, as you know, has gone from a community college which only offered associate's degrees and certificate programs to a state college which now offers bachelor's degrees. And when you do that, under our accreditors, you have to not refer to yourself as a community college anymore. So that's where the state college and where that elevation of status came in there, and therefore a new name had to be put together and selected.
So what goes into changing it now? I mean, I imagine there's athletic jerseys that need to be changed, merchandise in the bookstore. What else?
Well, of course, we suspect this was coming down the pike for a bit at this point, a bit of time. And so, like even the athletic jerseys and whatnot, they've had Titans on them, but they haven't had necessarily BCC Titans on them. So we knew that was going to happen. And to that end, Titans will remain our mascot. And so we're pleased to do that. What goes into it as well is obviously there'll be some changes in terms of the signage. Some of the a lot of the internal things we can do. We have a graphics department already that can change from the logo of BCC to our new logo of Eastern Florida State College.
So you're going to be rolling that out in the next couple of weeks?
We are actually. The legislature, this is a legislative situation where the legislature has to change your name, and both the House and the Senate have passed that legislation, and the governor will be signing it soon. And once that happens on July 1, which is the new fiscal year that all state agencies in the college adhere to, that'll be the time frame with which Eastern Florida State College will be up and running officially, and we will have a new ad campaign that folks will see and identify with, and we're real excited about it.
So it's not just a name; it's a law now. And now, if somebody has a degree, has received a degree in the past from Brevard Community College, can they get a new diploma or a new certificate that says Eastern Florida State College?
Absolutely, they absolutely can. In fact, on our website, there's a link on there that you can check out that talks about how you go about doing that, who you contact, and how it'll happen for you. So a lot of folks have had that question a lot, and we're pleased to give them those degrees.
Speaking of degrees, you've rolled out this week or announced some new degrees. What are they?
Well, this week we've talked about 4 new associate's degree programs. One is what they call an A&P program, which is an aircraft and power plant program for folks that are aircraft mechanics and people that work on aircrafts. And of course,
that's a big deal now.
That's a big deal. We're very excited about that. It's an economic driver for the county, and we've been approached quite a long time ago to have us consider something along those lines, and we've done it in a very deliberate way, working closely with folks in industry in South Brevard, as well as other institutions and our economic development agencies, the Chamber of Commerce in Melbourne, a lot of other folks to kind of put it together. So we're real excited about that program, as we are our other programs, which are, a lot of them are health related. We have an occupational therapy assistant position degree coming out. We have one for physical therapy assistants. And we have a certificate program for sonographer, and we're also going to have an advanced manufacturing certificate to folks to help us in the community work on advanced manufacturing opportunities for them.
So now, is this based on guesswork, or people telling you from the chamber that this is what they think would be a great thing to do degrees on, or do you do research? Where does it come from?
Of course, we get a lot of ideas from folks, but we really do it in a much more research-oriented, much more methodical way.
On to animals. It has been nearly 5 years since Brevard County Commissioners called for a no-kill policy at local shelters. That goal once seemed dangerously unrealistic given the sheer number of unwanted and unclaimed dogs and cats on the Space Coast. But new Animal Services Director Carla Torpy shared a progress report that offers hope.
The shelter has implemented lots of different programs within the shelter to help adoptions. They've now worked very closely with a volunteer coordinator who uses community volunteers. They're doing off-site adoptions at banks and events and all over the place, anywhere they get invited, which is helping the exposure of the animals from the shelter and also reintroducing the location of the shelter to various citizens so they know where to come if they're interested in a new pet. In addition to the adoptions, Oh, we've also changed the hours of the shelters so that it's more convenient for our citizens to come into the shelters. We're open 6 days a week to the public. We're closed on Wednesdays, and the rest of the time we're open from 12 until 6 p.m. So after hours and weekends makes it a lot more convenient for some folks to come in. Also, one of the other proactive actions that we've taken is utilizing our animal enforcement officers out in the field. So these are the individuals that get called when they're stray animals to pick them up. And so what they do is when they're in the field, they try to identify the animal when they pick it up.
Okay.
And to determine if there's an owner and if it's just loose and needs to be returned home before it ever comes into the shelter. So that's made a huge difference in the number of animals actually coming in, and it's also reunified animals with their owners and reduced a lot of stress, we hope, with owners who discover a pet missing.
A dog got out of the yard, and where'd it go? They
Right.
don't know whether it was been picked up by animal services or just ran away or
Exactly.
whatever.
I had one this weekend, one of my neighbors, and they found the gate open, had no idea how the gate was open. All the other dogs were there, but the one older one was missing. There was a neighborhood search for that, and after speaking with them, they made a lost report to the animal shelter. And we also have, this community is so fortunate, we have a website here, it's called Brevard Lost Pets.
Okay.
And it's run by Lynn Maraglia. You may know her, y'all have interviewed her before, with a nice article in the paper. But what she does is she coordinates with the shelter site, which lists and has photos for most of the stray animals as well as the adoptable animals that are in the shelters. It's on our website, and she will pick up those animals and put them on her website. But also, if you find an animal, you can go on and upload the information where you found it, a photo of that, and that helps reunite people as well if you know to go and look at that website.
Okay.
So we encourage people when they call the shelter reporting a missing animal, go on there and look, and then she'll do her thing, and people find them, lost them, whatever happens, and it reunifies.
What's the name of the site again?
It's called Brevard Lost Pets.
Okay.
And so the websites are another really great addition in this last couple years to make progress with the animals leaving alive in the shelters. And all the adoptable animals are available, so you can go on our website and look and see what you're looking for, if the type of animal, or if you're kind of looking for a little one or a big one or an old one or a young one. Those are some of the kinds of things you can look at, and then if you see something you like, you can come in and take a look at it.
What percentage of animals that come in are live released, or is it are adopted or go back out in some fashion?
Yeah, we keep track. It's called a live release rate.
Okay.
And that's what we're working on in the shelters, and that's what we've been working really hard on this last few years. We want that number to be 90%. Last month, in March of 2013, we were 68.9%. So we're almost 70%. We've got a ways to go, but compared to the numbers from years ago, we have significantly improved. It has to do with, it's a joint effort from what's going on at the shelters and in animal services to also a big impact of what the community's doing. There are so many animal welfare groups that are at work in our communities doing everything, and one of them is the various rescue groups.
Okay.
So there's a lot of rescue groups for single breed animals, maybe dachshunds or pugs or shepherds or labs or something, and we actually have in our shelter environment, we have a staff person who is pretty much dedicated to rescue efforts. And so when animals come in, rescue groups are, cats, dogs, whatever, rescue groups are contacted by our rescue coordinator, and they're made aware that these types of animals are in, and many of them will come and take the animals out. So that's another way they go out alive.
Okay.
So adoptions are one of the ways. Rescue groups take animals and eventually adopt them to families that they find. Owner return, as we talked about a little bit. Some of the animals, because they're maybe not able to be identified in the field, maybe they don't have microchips or they don't have any kind of collar or tag on, so we can't identify them. and our animal services officers can't find an owner or somebody looking for one in the neighborhood they picked the animal up in. Those are also, we'd have reunification attempts once they get there, and a lot of that's through the website and calls made through Brevard Lost Pets or other folks coming in.
Next, an issue that could affect your pocketbook if you shop online. State Representative Rich Workman of Melbourne bucked conventional Republican thinking this past session with a bill to require vendors to collect sales tax for online purchases. Have you been paying that tax? Here's what Workman says about that. You had another bill that passed a committee. I was really interested in this one because it's been a subject of some contention both at the federal level and the state level, and that was to classify internet sales the same as mail order sales and to apply a sales tax. Why did you do that? It seems like that's, some people say that's a tax increase. What do you say?
Well, it's called the e-fairness bill, and I've always thought that I would oppose any kind of taxation on the internet. But the reality is more and more people are shopping day to day on the internet. And the law is clear that if you buy goods on the internet, you as a consumer must pay the tax directly to the Florida Department of Revenue. This bill really decriminalizes you, Matt, and the guy behind the camera, and you at home. It decriminalizes you. Because if you buy something on the internet from Amazon.com and you don't pay the sales tax, you are breaking the law by not paying the sales tax, remitting it to the DOR.
I did not know that.
We collect about $9 million a year from honest citizens that buy on the internet and pay their tax. It's a fact. The Florida law requires you to pay it, but you're not. And the cost to the state to try to go and find your receipts and find how much you didn't pay it on would overwhelm the number that we would get from it. But it is the law that you must pay tax on what you buy on the internet. It is also a law you must pay tax when you buy retail. The difference is we have a deal with retail. They collect it for us. Right. They collect it for you, quite honestly. We don't have that deal with the internet because they hide behind the interstate commerce law. They don't have a footprint in Florida, so they don't collect the tax for us. It gives them an advantage over our retail stores. What my bill did, because I don't want to raise taxes, nor do I want to raise revenue for the state, my bill was a direct set-off. It said, okay, look, let's make these internet retailers collect and remit on our behalf. Just like Kmart and Walmart does. Let's make Amazon do the same thing online that Walmart does at its stores. The offset, though, is that for every dollar raised in revenue in internet taxation, Florida would have a tax holiday to directly offset it. So if we raised $500 million on the internet, we would have a $500 million retail holiday. So right now we have a 3-day that's worth about $36 million. So you can imagine maybe a 2-month no sales tax in the whole state to offset whatever we raise on the internet. And the bill went on to say that if at any point it hits $1 billion in revenue on the internet, we would deduct 0.25% off the state sales tax permanently. So we're current 6%, we would drop it to 5.75 once we hit $1 billion. It takes about $1 billion for 0.25%.
As promised, here's Alice Garwood with a look at what readers have been telling Florida Today.
A number of readers share their views about the Boy Scouts of America's recent decision to allow openly gay youth to be members. David Bonner of Vieira opposes the decision. He writes, "The 100-year-old traditions of the Boy Scouts now will be changed forever. The outcome will have a lasting impact on all of America. The revolt of many angry Americans may fracture the Scouts forever, as many may leave." Michael Broadmeadow of Cocoa says traditions should evolve as society evolves. He writes, "A recent letter writer stated the decision will change the 100-year-old traditions of the Boy Scouts forever. Is this a bad thing? What about the tradition of men only at Augusta National Golf Club or the tradition of restricted country clubs? Those traditions seem silly today, don't they?" Several readers have written letters about schools of choice. Mary Jo Pecoraro of Merritt Island seeks to clear up misconceptions about these schools, which her 2 children attended. She writes, "Schools of choice serve academically motivated students in an environment that challenges and nurtures them. Schools of choice don't serve an elite group of students. They serve students who make a commitment to challenge and motivate themselves to stay at or above grade level." Patricia Rees of Rockledge maintains schools of choice have an attitude of superiority. She writes, "In response to the recent letter writer's alleged clearing up of misconceptions about schools of choice, by accident she made very clear one of the problems with choice schools, their private school attitude of superiority. Choice schools represent the privatization of the public school system, making it more and more for the haves than the have-nots. William Alfred of Palm Bay disagrees. He writes, "Choice schools will attract students who have the work ethic, diligence, and responsibility to study hard and achieve versus those students who do not. If we don't nurture and encourage our best and brightest, where does the writer think our society's top contributors are going to come from?" I'm Alice Garwood, Public Interest Curator for Florida Today. Remember, we welcome your comments on anything you see on these subjects or read in Florida Today by sending an email of 200 words or less to letters@floridatoday.com.
Now we take you just west of Interstate 95, where the Vieira Company has begun its next phase of development. Strom Park will feature denser neighborhoods where residents can easily walk to shopping or entertainment. Here, Vieira officials tell the story themselves.
We're standing in Strom Park, which is the first residential community in Village 1. We haven't named Village 1 yet, but which is south of Wickham Road, south of Health First. We're in the midst of, this is the first community that we're actually constructing, but we're planning and designing the balance of Village 1, which is going to be a variety of different housing types, quite a diversity of housing, different types. We're going to have alley-loaded product, similar to what you see in Baldwin Park and Celebration, around the village center, which is a 50 or 60 acre core, just south of the hospital and the medical park, and that's where the apartments and the higher density product would be. And then around the fringes, your density will decrease, and you'll get more conventional product, but still have the connectivity and the walkability extended. So you'll have a lot of two-lane streets that are more connections than you typically see.
Strom actually is Slovak for trees, so something that's a little bit different than some of the communities that you see in Vieira is the amount of natural vegetation that you see. We have a lot of mature trees, as you can see behind me here, that we work very hard to save, and we're actually going to incorporate a trail system through there. There's trees behind here that we're saving that are going into a pretty good sized park. So, that's something that's a little unique for this community. What we're trying to do is increase the walkability, so there'll be a lot of trails in here. There's not going to be gates, so that's going to be different from what you've seen in West Vieira. It's not a gated community. There are going to be parks in here. We're going to have some sort of water feature. Not a community pool, but a water feature, and then playgrounds for the kids. But the green spaces and the walkability and the trail system that we're going to have through this community are going to be a little bit different than what Vieira's had in the past.
One of the things that the Vieira Wilderness Park does is it buffers the state-owned or St. John's Water Management District-owned River Lakes Conservation Area, which is a 44,000 acre conservation area, and it also buffers the St. John's floodplain, which is well west of the Wilderness Park. Now, that is a tremendous public resource, that conservation area. We hope to work directly with the St. John's Water Management District in a cooperative manner to establish trails that will meander through the Vieira Wilderness Park where it's safe to do so, because, as I said, agriculture is a key component of the management of this wilderness park. But travel through the wilderness park into the River Lakes Conservation Area. And there's opportunities for equestrian use, hikes by students, interpretive educational exhibits.
We're still planning some residential north of Wickham Road, which is going to be traditional neighborhood design, which is alley-loaded product. In the town center area, across the street from the avenue, north of Freedom Christian, about 200 units there, which are like 35 and 45 foot wide lots. And then we're also doing some alley-loaded product north of Publix, with a small retail strip maybe on the corner, just north of the Signal, north of Publix also. And that will come out of the ground before the next residential here. This is really more in the design stage, the balance of this village. And that will probably come out more in 2014, the end of 2014, the balance of Village 1.
Well, we talked about saving dogs and cats earlier in the program. Here's a look at a sanctuary for some very special animals that just opened in Fellsmere.
We've just opened and received our first elephants a week ago. We're very excited. We have 4 animals, 2 adult females and 2 calves, and it's a family unit, and they're just getting adapted to their new home. The National Elephant Center is intended to be a support facility to provide options for elephants that need a home. Elephants that have facilities that may be under renovation and need a place to stay for a while, elephants that may be in transition, or elephants who are coming from a facility and they're going to be here for the rest of their lives. So we're providing an option for elephants that doesn't exist today. Our facility is not open to the public. It's not been intended for that purpose. It's really for the benefit and long-term health and welfare of elephants. It will be a training facility for veterinarians and elephant keepers, but it's not going to be open to the public in general. We will do special tours. We will do educational programming. We will do donor tours and member tours. Eventually, down the road, we're going to build an education center that will be right next to our facility, and that way we'll have classrooms for kids to come and an observation area where they can look over into the elephant facility. We are a nonprofit organization, and we do hope to expand. We're using about 25 acres of our total 225 acres here on the site. So we will be fundraising in the future to expand our programs, to expand the habitats for the elephants, and to make a better life so elephants have a future here in North America and in the world.
That's our program, Brevard. Remember to publish your opinion on anything you hear on today's program or read in Florida Today. Send an email of 200 words or last 2 letters at floridatoday.com. From Florida Today, I'm Matt Reed. We'll see you right here next Wednesday on WBCC.